Hi, I'm Coach Love from runningwithdoc.com. On today's video blog, we're going to be talking about hip strengthening. And if you've been reading Runner's World or talking to runners in the last couple years, hip strengthening has been a huge deal. And I see that in my physical therapy practice as well. In the most recent issue of Runner's World, they published a pretty long article that had some good tips on some hip strengthening, including a couple phases worth of a program. Today I want to talk about an article from 2012 that was a literature review that looked at what's called maximal voluntary isometric contraction. Basically what that means is how much muscle activation you get with a certain exercise. And what this group did was they looked at a series of exercises and looked at different studies that assessed how much your muscles activated. And what they came up with were classifications of which exercises gave the highest maximal contraction for the gluteus medius muscle and the gluteus maximus muscle. Basically, those are the muscles on the butt that are on the side and the big one in the back. And what I'd like to do today is show you the 5 exercises that showed the most contraction. The reason I want to give you this is because as runners, we often are fighting for time to do other things outside of running. And if we can keep it simple, along with keeping it functional, and get the biggest bang for our buck, we can help prevent injuries in that way. I would definitely agree with all of the things that are out there about hip strengthening being associated with injuries. We see that specifically with knee injuries. So if you can incorporate some of this into your routine, I think you can be a healthier runner in the end. So, moving on to the exercises. We're going to go over 5 exercises today. The first 3 exercises hit the 50% maximal volitional isometric contraction mark. And this is an important mark that shows that these exercises are definitely quality exercises that can increase strength. 50% is kind of the mark that you want to hit. The next 2 exercises that I've added on were ones that almost got to the 50% mark based on the studies that were looked at. So those are also strong exercises, just not quite as strong as the first 3. During all of these exercises, it's important to remember that form is the most important part of it. It doesn't matter how many reps you can do or how much weight you can do if you're using improper form. For all of these, we want to think about the position of our pelvis because all of these are going to be single limb exercises. When we go up on one leg, we have a tendency to sometimes support our leg by shifting weight over it or not support it by letting our hip dip. Either of those changes are negative changes. So for all of these, I want you to think about having a level pelvis and level hips. The next thing you want to think about is your knee position because we're going to be doing squatting in these exercises. We never want to see your knee go in, and we also don't want it to see it go out. Okay, the other thing we don't want to see is your knee going really far forward in front of your toes. So keep those qualities in mind as we think about these exercises. The first exercise that shows the best overall maximal volitional isometric contraction is a single leg squat with a toe touch. You're going to bend your knee to about 30 degrees, just a slight bend in the knee. And then what you're going to do is keep your shoulders and your chest up as you start to sit back during that squat, okay? As you sit back, you want to bring your trunk forward until you can touch the outside of your toe, and then you can come back up, okay? Ideally, you want to keep the knee from diving in, so when you go forward on that toe, you don't want to see the knee go in, okay? Keep that in mind as you do this exercise. The second exercise is called a single leg deadlift, okay? You're going to bend the knee, again to 30 degrees or so, okay? From that bent position, you're going to keep your back leg in line with your trunk, shoulders and chest up as you lean forward over that leg until you feel a pretty strong pull in the back of the leg, and then you're going to come back up, okay? My 8-mile run and hamstring tightness is limiting that. Hopefully you can go a little bit further. The big key in that one is keeping that back leg in line with the trunk. Otherwise you start to activate different muscles that aren't meant to really be a part of that exercise. The third one that showed that 50% mark or above was a single leg wall squat. So find a wall. You're going to have your feet about 1.5 feet away from that wall. And then you're going to go up on one leg, again keeping the pelvis level as you slide down and push back up. Pelvis level, down, and back up. The fourth exercise, again, these didn't quite hit that 50% mark, is called a transverse lunge. It's a lunge out at a corner. So instead of going straight forward, we're going to go out at a corner. You want to get to where both knees bend to about 90 degrees. The front leg, make sure your knee doesn't go over your toes. And the back leg, make sure that it stays in alignment. Okay? So as I step, I'm going to step out, go down, back up, all the way. Out, down, up, and all the way. Okay? The last exercise is the easiest. It's simply a step up on a step. I obviously don't have a step in front of me, but you would simply put your foot up on a step, step forward. The big key with that exercise, maintain a level pelvis, and you're going to do it right. If you can incorporate any of those 5 exercises into a weekly schedule, 2 or 3 times a week, you're going to start to see an improvement in hip strength. These are functional exercises that work a lot of other muscles as well. So you might not necessarily feel just the hip working, but if you do a couple sets of 10 of these, couple times a week, you're going to get stronger and hopefully help prevent injury, especially at the knee as you run.